The full roster for WWE 2K22 has now been released, and there are several wrestlers that were available in 2K20 that are no longer playable in the latest WWE game. Whether it be due to releases, expiring contracts, or other reasons, let's look at every wrestler removed from WWE 2K22 that were in 2K20. And man, there's a lot. The late great Dusty Rhodes sadly passed away in 2015, and he has since appeared in multiple WWE games, and his legacy has been a big part of pro wrestling. Although they still have his merchandise on WWE Shop, he won't be making an appearance in 2K22. Part of the Riot squad during her time in WWE, Ruby Riott has left the company following her release in June 2021. Although some released talents have appeared in the game, Ruby is not one of them, likely due to her now wrestling in All Elite Wrestling as Ruby Soho. A fellow Riot Squad member, Sarah Logan, was also released from WWE. She took some time off and went on to have a baby, and although she made an appearance in the Royal Rumble 2022, she is yet to make a complete return to pro wrestling and won't be returning to the WWE game franchise. ZELINA Vega was released from WWE in 2020 after she objected to WWE's third-party platform ban. She would then return in 2021 before winning the inaugural Queen's Crown tournament, and she is the current Women's Tag Champion alongside Carmella. This makes her absence from 2K22 surprising. The world's strongest man, Mark Henry, had a lengthy career in WWE before his 2018 Hall of Fame induction. His last appearance in the company would be in January 2021, and he would later join AEW as a commentator and coach. 2K22 is one of only a few WWE games Henry has missed out on since 1999. After his call-up from NXT, No Way Jose wasn't used much during his main roster run and was eventually released from the company in April 2020. Since then, he had a brief run in Impact Wrestling. He has been a part of 3 WWE games, with 2K20 being his last. MOJO Rawley is next, as the Hype Man misses out on a spot in 2K22. After 10 months of inactivity, MOJO was released from the company in April 2021. Since then, he has appeared in the G.I. Joe prequel film Snake Eyes, but hasn't wrestled outside of WWE. Making history by winning the Divas title on her main roster debut, Paige was one of the most popular females in WWE. Although an injury forced her to retire in 2018, she is still under a WWE contract. She has appeared in every WWE 2K game since, but misses out this time around. Alicia Fox had been a part of WWE since 2008 and has appeared in 9 WWE games since then. In 2019, her contract would expire, but she has made sporadic appearances, winning the 24/7 title, as well as competing in both the 2021 and the 2022 Royal Rumbles. Some thought she would make the game, but it doesn't seem to be the case. Brutus Beefcake was a regular in WWF during the 80s and early 90s. He would be inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2019 by his friend Hulk Hogan. Although he wasn't a regular in the 2K series, he was part of 2K20, but is no longer present in the series. CURT Hawkins is sadly best known for having one of the longest losing streaks in company history, losing for 3 years straight. Hawkins was then released from WWE in April 2020 and has since been a part of Impact Wrestling whilst working independent dates. His release means he misses out on 2K22. JAXSON RYKER was the leader of the Forgotten Sons, and the stable debuted on the main roster in 2020. However, after RYKER made some controversial online remarks, they were disbanded. RYKER stuck around longer than his stablemates, but he was released in November 2021, and he hasn't wrestled since. Part of the Subculture tag team, Mark Andrews joined WWE in 2017 as part of NXT UK, and he's gone on to win the NXT UK tag titles alongside Morgan Webster. However, both members are not included in the game, with Mark last competing in October 2021, making him inactive at the moment. Akam and Razor, aka Authors of Pain, are former NXT and Raw Tag Team Champions. They would receive a prominent push as Seth Rollins' enforcers before eventually being released in September 2020. Both of them have yet to wrestle since, and they don't make the cut. Tony Nese was part of WWE's Cruiserweight division since 2016. He would win the 2019 Cruiserweight Championship Contender Tournament and then went on to become a one-time Cruiserweight Champion. On June 2021, he was released from the company and has since worked various times on AEW Dark and the Indies, but he won't be appearing in WWE 2K22. Gentleman Jack Gallagher was a cruiserweight regular before he was released from the company in 2020 after an allegation was made against him during the Speaking Out movement. He has since signed for Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship, where he will have his first fight in mid-2022, and his absence isn't surprising. Lars Sullivan looked set for a big push in WWE, with reports at one point suggesting that he was set for a WrestleMania match with John Cena. His online past then came back to haunt him before he asked for his release in January 2021. He has since stated that he is done with wrestling, and he's also done in the 2K series. Bo Dallas was one of the hottest stars in NXT before a dismal main roster run. Although he did go on to win the Raw Tag titles as part of the B Team, he was eventually released in April 2021, so his exclusion from the game isn't a major surprise. The second incarnation of Sin Cara was released in December 2019. He had requested his release after being told by Paul Heyman that the gimmick was dead. Since then, he has competed in AAA, having been removed from the WWE game series after over 2 years away from the company. Eric Rowan is best known for his part in the Wyatt family. He was released from WWE in April 2020 and has since made appearances in AEW, first during the Brody Lee tribute show to pay his respects for his longtime partner, and he most recently wrestled at the AEW Revolution pay-per-view buy-in. KASSIUS OHNO joined NXT in 2012 only to leave and then return in 2016. He would compete in the Black and Gold brand before joining NXT UK, where he had his final run in the company, being released in April 2020. The former Chris Hero hasn't wrestled since, and he's since been removed from the game. Curtis Axel had been with WWE since 2007 and appeared as part of the Nexus, the Social Outcasts, and the B Team. He is a one-time Intercontinental Champ and a two-time Tag Champion, but he was released from the company in April 2020, sparking his removal from the game. Mike Kanellis would regularly be accompanied by his wife Maria Kanellis. He had a brief run on the main roster before being moved to 205 Live, and he and his wife were later released. They've since competed in Ring of Honor and Impact Wrestling, where they continue to work together. Noam Dar debuted in WWE in 2016, and since then he's been part of the Cruiserweight division as well as NXT UK. He is the current NXT UK Heritage Cup champion, and despite still being signed with the company and being part of the 2K series from 2K18 and onwards, he is not included in 2K22. Eric Young was the leader of Sanity during his time in WWE, with the group having some initial success on the main roster before getting lost in the shuffle. Eric was later released in April 2020, and he now leads a Sanity-inspired stable named Violent by Design in Impact Wrestling, meaning he doesn't make the game. Molly Holly is best known for her role in the Divas division during the Attitude Era as the cousin of Bob and Crash, as well as the sidekick of the Hurricane Mighty Molly. Now a Hall of Famer, Molly was most recently seen in the 2022 Royal Rumble, but has been left out of the game this time around. Heath Slater debuted on the main roster as part of Nexus and has since had a relatively successful career as a jobber. He is a 4-time tag champion and has been part of multiple stables such as FreeMB and the Social Outcasts. Heath had appeared in every WWE game except 2015 since WWE 12, and he now misses out on 2K22. Zack Ryder was the first wrestler to get over with social media, becoming one of the most popular wrestlers despite not being on TV. He was never truly given the ball, but since his April 2020 release, he has gone on to do great work in both GCW and Impact, showing his true potential, but this means he won't be in 2K22. The Good Brothers Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson debuted in WWE in 2016, forming an alliance with AJ Styles. The two were released in April 2020 and have been part of AEW and Impact since, and they had appeared in every 2K game since 2K17, but that run now comes to an end. Kairi Sane is most widely known for her run as WWE Women's Tag Champion with Asuka. She would eventually return to Japan to be with her husband, becoming a brand ambassador, but she later left the company in December 2021 when her contract expired, having now returned to Stardom. With that said, she won't be returning to 2K22. Luke Harper had a 7-year career in WWE, most notably as part of the Wyatt family. He would be granted his release in December 2019 before debuting for AEW. He would sadly pass away in December 2020 and is not included in 2K22. With that said, he will no doubt be a part of the AEW console game upon its release. Scott Dawson and Dash Wilder formed the team known as the Revival. They would win 5 tag titles in total before asking for their release, citing disappointment in the creative process. They later joined AEW, sparking their exit from the WWE game franchise. Kurt Angle made his WWE return in 2017 as the Raw General Manager. His last match for the company was at WrestleMania 35 in 2019 before transitioning into a backstage role. He was later released in April 2020 and has since launched his own podcast, but his absence from 2K22 ends his free game WWE streak. Drake Maverick is most known for his hilarious run in the 24/7 division, but has since been released twice in 2 years, but now finds himself on the WWE creative team. Maverick had appeared in 2K20 as a manager, and despite being part of the company, he isn't in 2K22. None of Mick Foley's famous gimmicks find a spot on the WWE 2K22 roster. Although he is currently under a Legends contract, he has been critical of WWE for their decision-making as of late, perhaps leading to his removal from the series. Another legendary wrestler, Ricky Steamboat, was one of WWE's main wrestlers during the 80s. He has appeared in multiple WWE games, 9 in total, with 2K20 being the latest one. Although he is still under WWE contract as a brand ambassador, he has not made the cut for 2K22. EC3 had all that was needed to be a main eventer in WWE, but his main roster run was catastrophic. He was eventually released in April 2020, having only found success in NXT. It's now been 2 years since his release, meaning his 2K22 absence isn't surprising. Bobby Fish had a great run in NXT as part of the Undisputed Era, dominating the brand. He was released by WWE in August 2021, later debuting in AEW to reunite with former stablemates Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly. Interestingly, O'Reilly is in 2K22, but Fish doesn't make the cut. The Bella Twins were a mainstay of the WWE Divas era, although they've now since left to pursue careers outside of wrestling. Despite sporadic appearances, most recently in the 2022 Royal Rumble match, they've been cut from the game, likely due to a lack of WWE contract. Big Show was a long-time WWE superstar, although in recent years his appearances became sporadic. He would eventually find himself joining All Elite Wrestling in February 2021, giving 2K plenty of time to remove him from the roster of the latest installment of the WWE game franchise. Andrade had a successful NXT run where he won the NXT title before making the jump to the main roster. Although he won the United States Championship, his main roster run fell flat before he was granted his release in 2021. Since then, he's joined AEW, leading to his removal from the game. Matt Hardy would return to WWE in 2017 alongside his brother Jeff, but both men are now once again out of the company, with Matt joining AEW in 2020. His brother Jeff makes the 2K22 roster despite his release, although it was probably too late to take him out, but Matt didn't make the cut for obvious reasons. Many thought Velveteen Dream was a future WWE main eventer, however, things took a turn for the worst. Allegations made against him during the Speaking Out movement hurt his momentum before his release in May 2021. Almost a year on from his release, his absence isn't a surprise. Christian was forced to retire in 2014 but made his surprise appearance at the Royal Rumble in 2021. Months later, he would show up in AEW as a surprise signing despite an offer from WWE. Although he's a Hall of Fame worthy talent, Christian Cage is all elite, meaning he won't be in 2K22. Lita has made a number of WWE appearances as of late, most recently losing in a match for the Raw Women's Championship against Becky Lynch at the Elimination Chamber event. Her absence from WWE 2K22 is a surprise considering she's somewhat semi-active and is on good terms with the company. Maybe she'll be DLC later on down the line. Rusev, now known as Miro, is another name removed from the 2K franchise. He has been with AEW since September 2020 following his WWE release, and whilst his wife Lana makes the cut, who was also released, Rusev's removal is no surprise considering he is now all elite. Another wrestler removed from the series is Aleister Black, who now goes by the name of Malachi Black in AEW. He now leads the House of Black, with his stablemate Buddy Murphy actually appearing in the game. As for Black, he is nowhere to be seen, to the surprise of nobody. Sting made his long-awaited WWE debut in 2014, but this only led to 2 high-profile losses. He was later forced to retire but remained under WWE contract until late 2020, before later joining AEW, where he has returned to in-ring action. This of course means that he is no longer part of the WWE 2K franchise. In January 2022, Ronda Rousey made her long-awaited return, winning the Royal Rumble match. It's surprising to see the WrestleMania main event being left out of 2K22, although she has been absent for 2 years. She will likely be added as DLC later on in the game's cycle. Adam Cole won it all in NXT as a former NXT, North American, and NXT Tag Team Champion. He was the leader of the Undisputed Era, a stable which he dominated the brand with for many years. In August 2021, his contract expired before he left for All Elite Wrestling, which explains his removal from 2K22. Bray Wyatt was a popular member of the WWE roster and rose back to the main event scene in 2019, re-debuting as The Fiend. This was followed by disappointing creative that left Wyatt in limbo before his shock release in July 2021. He has been working on a movie project, but he hasn't wrestled since WrestleMania 37, although some did expect him to make the game due to his popularity. And speaking of popularity, Daniel Bryan is one of the most popular superstars of the modern era, but despite his close ties to the company, he would let his contract expire last year, joining All Elite Wrestling in August 2021. His exclusion from 2K22 isn't a surprise, with him being one of WWE's rivals' biggest stars. And before you go, make sure you check out every released superstar that made it into WWE 2K22.